So I'm going to do a winter scene with acrylics, and I'm going to use the scrape-in technique. Now, what I like to scrape with is white vinyl erasers. You can buy expensive ones at an office supply store, or you can get them for $1.25 for 4 of them at the dollar store. It's up to you. I'm not sure whether they're artist quality or not, but they work. So what I do is I take the eraser, take the shield off it, and I cut it at an angle. See, that's even cheaper. You get 2 erasers for the price of 1. So actually I get, out of my $1.25, I get 8 erasers, you know, cut them in half. So it looks like this. So what this does is it gives me a broad surface, it gives me a point, and I don't make the point floppy. I cut the point off. I just need it about like that, see? So I got a broad surface, I've got that, and maybe since this is a big canvas, I'll even use this one. You can wash them after, you know? I'll use this one to get it a little fatter. If you were using a huge canvas, you could have fun with the broad stuff, eh? So, here we go, don't blink. So I'm going to start with, I'm going to stick with more or less dark colors here, so I'm going to go with green, put some magenta into it in order to just make dark stuff, like this. The darker you can make it, the more punchy the trees are going to look afterwards. But the secret is paint white, titanium white on the canvas first. Now if you want gray trees, paint titanium white mixed with gray. I've done that before too, it looks really good. I'm just going to use straight white, because if you use the masking on the canvas, or not the masking but the primer on the canvas, you get a different look. I've done it that way too. It's more subtle. You don't get really punchy whites though. If you want punchy whites, paint titanium white first, and it causes it seals the surface so that when you put the paint on, you can scrape through it and it'll almost all come right up. So first off, spritz it. You got to continually spritz while you're working. And then I'm taking these colors, dark, whatever, and I'm going to put some big dark areas. I can even leave some openings, getting fancy now, and in the openings I can do some branches. Whoops. I can do some edge printing of branches and things in the openings if you really want to try and do that, but it doesn't matter, just color it all in. Because then I'll try to be precious about it, and it'll govern where I put the trees after, the trees later on. So you just mop it in, then look after the edge quality. So up here, I'm gonna create things that look potentially like evergreens, like that. Higher, lower, you know, just things that you could believe conceivably are trees back there. Deciduous wouldn't be a good idea because of course it's winter time, but evergreens would work. So some I'll take right off the top, you know, a few of them right off the top. Oh, it was a big evergreen, that's all right. And just kind of create the impression of stuff back there, right? So roughen up the top layer to make it interesting. Then the bottom layer, bring that down, and I could, I'm going to skip over here, so you can do some little hangy down things, some floaters, just so that that bottom layer doesn't look too regimented. I know the trunks will come down, I'll get to that in a moment. But so then I'm going to come down below that, down to here, and create underbrush. So I can first of all just go right through here just to speed it up, and then bring things up and bring things down and create a few floaters and stuff like that. Okay, and then in between I'm going to take some blue color, bluish, and it can be a little grungy, it doesn't really matter too much. And down at the very back in here, I want to create some slightly cooler, but not that cool, maybe a bit of green in there too, and just kind of mop that in there so that it creates a hollow. So that I'm using the cold colors to create a hollow underneath the trees. You'll see how it works in a minute here. So just kind of mop it in there. All I'm looking for is an impression of the back of a forest in there. See, so mop that in. Then take some reddish, greenish, darkish stuff, red and green, and I want to have some trunks in here. So I'm just going to come through that and lay in some trunks. Some of them should be continuous, I suppose, with some of the trunks I did up above, like that. Could have a big one. And just put in some trunks, not too big, but farther away. Then again with that blue stuff, I'm going to come down here and create a bluish little band down here, so that it looks like it might be the shadows from the underbrush. So just go across there with some blue, and then I'm going to meld it up inside here. Any little white flecks you leave that just look like snow, so it's not a big deal. And then I'm going to create some little thicket branches here, and then dot them in with my fingers so that they don't look too obvious. Just underbrush and stamp it with your fingers. So that basically creates a layer across there. Now I'm spritzing it. I would have spritzed it even before that, but I'm spritzing it again. And you can even, I wouldn't play around with the background too much. You can, of course, easily throw in, little white branches there like that coming from some of these trees. You can, don't do too much of it because it'll steal attention from what's going to happen now. But, it can look okay. And then this I want to be a little bit blurry. So I'm just looking for my blurring brush here, in other words my wet finger, and I'm just going to mess that up there with a little color. That's all right. I'm just going to soften the bottom here, hard and soft, so it's not all hard edged. So hard edged things look like objects and soft edged things look like shadows. So again, a little bit more darkness here. Right, so I want that to be very strong there, and the same thing up here. If I see anything that's very thin, I'll just throw in some more little sweeps of color. Some places, again, it can hang down into that blue area to make it look random and foresty, so that's good enough there. All right, and now I'm ready for the trees. So I'm going to have another rabbit there if I'm not careful. Okay, so I'm taking the pointy stuff, so I'm going small trees first, then larger, and then largest at the end there. So here's the small trees. So these will start down here, just in the white area, but what I'll do is I'll drag them down first, see, like this, and then gather some paint, bring it down, and then go up like that. So I'm just going to randomly throw in a bunch of those things, and dragging them down, you see, bring some of the dark paint down into the white area. Don't need it to be too dark. So then I'm going to move along and just put a bunch of these. See, once you've picked up a bit of paint, then you can just start at the bottom and go up. So there they are on their way up like that. You can see the blue is already drying. Yeah, I'm going to spritz that. Then I can take a few random small branches up here. There won't be any leaves because it's autumn and all that kind of thing. So a few little random branches, and then I'm going to spritz it because I can tell the blue is drying because it's very thin. I could have put some white in that blue and it would thicken it up. So then like this one, I could go back at it, but it's sort of better if you just forget it, So I can go back at that and get the weight if I want, but I like it a bit more pure and quick. All right, that's the background trees. Then you go up and you tap them with a dirty finger near the top, and you're doing that in order to, actually these ones, since it's a winter, it doesn't matter if they end in a very stark way, because it's winter. Those trees are kind of deadish right by now. No leaves. Okay, then I'm going to the next edge, which would be this edge, which is going to give me a thicker tree. So with this one, first of all, I'm going to start maybe here and come down. So I'm going to drag some of this stuff with me, and you see how it's drying already, huh? I got to spritz it again. So drag it down and then up. And this one I'm taking right off the top. Okay? So I start over here, drag it down, do a little scarring with hesitation, and then come up and do more hesitations. I can also add these hesitation textures in later, but I like to get them along the way because they look more organic when you do that. See? So you come backwards and forwards in the paint on the surface so that you feel that you're going in a natural looking way back on the snow field. So I'm going to come out here now with another one, maybe about here, and drag down. You'll come about that far and then go back up and hesitate and turn it and play around with what would happen with the texture, and you keep on going. Aim for a couple of inches above the top. You don't want to suddenly do that with your hand because the top will look different. You want to take your hand straight up. So I don't want them all even. I'm going to come over here maybe, drag down and then go up. Cut through the other trees, which is becoming difficult because it's drying. Well, that's because I didn't spray it well enough, but I can actually deal with that. I can use a bit of white paint if I have to. I don't like to do that, but if I have to. So then over here, maybe another one. Just come down like that and then go up. You can see how fast that's drying back there. Eh? So at this point I could wet it. Later when that's totally dry, there's no way you could work that up, but I want this to overlap that big tree that I put in, see? So I want to, there, see? I want to cut that through that big tree so it's in front of it. Okay, I can tell that one's going to give me a problem, so I'm spritzing it again. So now I'm ready to go with some medium size or some large trees. I could put more small ones in, but I'm pretty sure if I put a big one here, it'll do the job. So I'm going to the next bigger surface here. I could even go really big with that whole area there on the eraser. It's close to what I have here though, so I think I'll go with this one. So now I want to just put about 3. So I always, once I'm doing this, I like to go with 3s and 5s and 7s and odd numbers. So I don't want it right in the middle, I want it slightly off center. This could work right about here. So I'm going to come down. So there's that tree. I don't want horizontal lines running through it. That's why I go back and scrub at some of these things here, see? Like this. And then I'm coming up, and I'm going to go with hesitations right off the top, like so. I want to make sure it feels like it's overlapping those other trees. So that's 1, 2 could be maybe here. And then now I have to figure, if I'm doing 3, do I want 2 with 1 back? Or do I want 1 forward with 2 back? I think I'll bring this down further, like that. And just keep on going and hesitating, and off we go off the top. Just try and scrumble through that tree again. That's what happens if you aren't quick enough and aren't being sensitive about how fast things are drying. However, I could come back with white paint later and fix it if I wanted to, but I think that's good enough. That's doing the job. All right, and one more, which I'm going to put right about here. So I'm going to aim for that. I don't care if it wipes out trees behind, because these are the important ones. Bring it down into the snow. Keep going and going, going. Keep going right off the top without changing the angle of your squeezer, your eraser. So I'm going to take this one. I want to cut through that a bit, maybe get a few more hesitations down below here so that it looks like it's a tree. So now I can see that's kind of going back into the distance there. I think that looks all right. So now what I want to do is a few lateral branches. So here I'm going to take the pointy end again and just lift up that way and take the medium-sized guy, cut through there. So I can pick up some paint here in the odd spot and do some branches, some from the bigger trees, and just overlap all the trees from the bigger trees like this, and do a few more like that, making sure that they are thicker near the tree, and maybe another couple down here, about here, like that. Just keep on going until you get a little bit of an outline against the sky. It's a little thicker near the tree, don't overwork it. And I think I'm just about there. Now I can cut out some little leafy shapes like that, just a few, just by kind of moving it just gives the feeling of leaves, even though really are there any leaves up there, you know, kind of a moot point. But then I'm going to take some just clean water and my brush and some clean cloth, and I have to deal with the ground plane a bit. So I don't want any intense shadows. I mean, I could really play with the shadows if I wanted to. I can have a point back here and have the shadows all radiate from that, you know, that would work, but it already looks interesting. If I overdo it with the ground plane, I got a problem. So just taking a tiny little bit of blue, the same kind of thing I have back there, tiny little bit of blue and water, and I'm going to put a little bit at the foreground like this, and then clean off again and just kind of wipe it back there like that, clean up some of the scunge. I can just put white paint there to clean that stuff off later. And then I'm going to soften the bases of the trees here. So I'm going to soften them and draw them a little bit out to the sides. Not much. I'm not really trying to make shadows, just almost like a little hill or indentation, but I want those trees to softly drop into the snow. Here you can see it looks too hard, so I can lick a bit of that off with the brush, of course, and then I'm just going to soften this a little touch here and drag a little bit out to the sides, and here take a bit of paint off. So I want this to be very subtle, this stuff coming out from beside the tree and at the base. I really don't want to make a big deal out of it. So I'm just softening. Then I can use a cloth and pick a bit out so that it's really quite subtle. And the same thing. So that's a little dark, the way that's stopping. Same here. And a little bit of subtle stuff out to the sides, but not too much, like that. Just find anything that looks like it's laying on top dead versus dropping down into the snow. So that's too dark there, and since that's quite liquid, I can go back and just touch it with the cloth and pull it out until I feel that it is sufficiently subtle. So that's about it. Sometimes the trees need to be slightly darker down in the snow, so I can just very subtly give the main ones a little touch. Down below here with a tiny bit of the bluish color, so that they're a little more silvery looking as they drop down where the snow is the backstop. See? Then I can go back and touch some of that out. So I want that to be fairly subtle, but I want to be able to see that there's a contrast once it gets down into the snow, or with the snow as a background. Just about like that. And I could play with the same idea up here. It's not really necessary, but see, I could put a little bit of, I'm almost dry brushing or glazing that on up there so that it stands out a little bit more contrastingly against the sky. See, so I'm just lifting some of this off here, putting a little bit up there, a little bit here maybe because that's a big tree. Grab some paint from down here and put some up there like that so that it stands out, dark against light, light against dark. Then take a small brush and put some little knot holes in here. They're just similar dark paint, and I'll start with the big trees. So don't make them like measles, just put them occasionally. That looks like two eyeballs there, so take one out. Just a few on the big ones and the medium, but not on the small one. This one didn't get any texturing, so I'm gonna kind of smear some in there with a little touch of stuff. You know, you can also play around with how it enters the tree, but it's not too necessary to do that. A few more little dots in here. So the more of a light touch that you have, the better the overall thing will look at the end. And then you could get fancy and put some slightly bluish shadows not too many, and those bluish shadows are coming from some little orange leaves, the last little leaves of the season. The rest are blown away or they're buried in the snow, and so then just touch those off a bit, and then I'm going to put a little orange leaf sort of sitting right there. And then up in the tree, just a few little orange touches. It's almost enough there. I put some out here, but it's too wet. You have to kind of scrape a bit out. Or actually, where I could put an orange one up there is where I've left a little white space. See? It could live there. Yeah. So not anything where you say, oh, this is all about orange leaves. It's not about that at all. It's about getting a complementary color. And if I don't like them, I can just paint them out with white paint. Or at this point, I can even wipe them out. You know? But that's all right. And that's it. So I don't want to turn it vertical because it'll... Okay, so I'm going to just give a little survey here with the video. I think you can pretty much see everything that's going on. It's a 16 by 20 canvas, and I will also take a photograph of it and put the full photo on the website. So how long did that take? Not too long.
No.
20 minutes. Yeah.
40 minutes.
When the canvas is gray, you put white color for snow?
Yes, that's right. Yeah. So I'm going to shut that off right now. There we go. But if I zoom in, you can kind of see what those trees look like there. See? Oh, another thing is I could get schmaltzy. I could take a toothbrush and with white paint and flick white paint on here, and it would look like snow falling. You know?
Yeah, yeah, look like a slope.
Yeah. It could look, you know, could be kind of cute. I've done that before. It actually looks not bad. That's it.